America is overweight. There's no surprise about that. We know it because we see it all around us every day. 2/3 of American adults are considered obese, and it's not getting any better. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but now there's a fascinating new study that says people may actually be catching obesity, like, for example, like they catch a common cold. Our AFR correspondent Jam Sardar is here now to tell us just how this growing phenomenon of catching obesity really takes place.
Excuse me, ma'am? We have a 300-pound weight limit.
I don't weigh no damn 300 pounds. I weigh 165. How you doing?
Overweight, obese, just plain fat. It's a condition Hollywood uses to generate a belly full of laughs.
Mary, Mother of God.
But for millions of Americans, their weight is no laughing matter, and their numbers, like their weight, are growing. Government statistics suggest 1 out of every 3 adults are considered obese, another 1 out of every 3 can be classified as overweight. And a new study suggests that by 2015, 75% of Americans will weigh more than they should. It's a statistic that surprises even the experts.
This is a demonstration kitchen.
Eileen Ford works at the Center for Obesity Research and Education at Temple University. It's where they run all sorts of studies to prevent people from getting fat and help the heavy shed those extra pounds. And the number of overweight Americans means their plates are full.
It is shocking, and it's still hard to digest, especially if you're in the field. I've seen this grow as I've been in the field as a nutritionist. Yet it's still really upsetting.
How can so many Americans weigh so much? Ford says there's an all-you-can-eat buffet of blame, from the sodas in our schools to the way we were brought up to our own genes. That's G-E-N-E-S.
Restaurants, fast food is a blame, TV, lack of exercise. I could go on and on if you wanted to, but it gets a little depressing.
And being overweight or obese contributes to heart problems, diabetes, and a whole host of medical conditions, which puts a heavy burden on us all, no matter where we tip the scales.
So it's not a matter of do I look good, do I feel good, how are my clothes, and what do my friends think. It really becomes taxing to the healthcare system. So this is an economic issue as well as a self-esteem. How do I feel about myself?
And a new study suggests this problem could expand. It shows obesity can spread almost like a virus, that people who have heavy social circles tend to weigh more themselves. So if 3 out of every 4 Americans ends up overweight, this growing trend might get even bigger. But researchers say if they can get and keep people on the right track, Americans might be able to shrink this issue and their waistlines down to size.
We can flip it though, and we can say it can help for treatment as well. That maybe we need to really look at changing the links of behavior among friends and trying to say, okay, we can get heavy together, but we also can start to change our eating behaviors together.
Changing behavior, and for clarity on this, basically a heavy person would tend to hang around another heavy person because that person, doesn't see them in any negative way because they're in the same boat.
Absolutely.
And they may tend to like to do the same type of social things because, like, for example, go out and eat together.
Even more interesting, if you're hanging out with people who are heavy, you become heavier. It's not just that heavy people hang out together. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you hang out with heavy people, you get heavier. And as we heard in the end of the story, the silver lining is if you hang out with people who are thin, you get thinner.
Well, because there's a lot of peer pressure there.
Right, a lot of peer pressure, a lot of when you go to the restaurant, hey, you want to split that dessert, you want to split the appetizer, stuff that you might not have gotten when you're on your own, but when you're hanging out with people, you tend to get a little more permissive, eat more than you would have, and when you're hanging out with people who are heavier, then it's not such a bad thing, because hey, I'm not the only one. If we're the same weight and we're both a little overweight, it's all right.
The one problem I had with that, though, and she talked about social behavior, because on the same token, 2 heavy people, for example, might decide that they want to lose weight together rather than they're going to go and hit the dessert stand together, right? I mean, it could work both ways.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons this research is so fascinating, and it's like I said, the silver lining in this cloud is they look to do research and try and figure out ways to combat obesity. Hanging out with people who are thinner, trying to get everybody on board, trying to get everybody to lose weight is something that could help everybody all around.
But again, this is a catchy phrase, catching obesity, like, oh, I'm catching a cold. I'm hanging out with heavy people, I'm getting heavier. But they're trying to lend some real credibility to this, saying that this is a true and genuine thing.
This particular study it took into account 12,000 people over 30 years. And what's really fascinating about this is your spouse has less influence over you than, say, your circle of friends. It's that social circle that really plays a big role in deciding whether you get bigger or not.
Wow. Okay, very interesting. Well, we've all got to watch it.
I
our
could use a
expanding
couple too.
waistlines.
Yeah.
You know,
I hear
TV makes us look big.
Yeah,
we're not
exactly.
this
There you
big.
go. That's it.
Gives us
That's
that extra
the reason.
10-pound thing.
Yeah.
All right. See you, Jam.